everyone. Welcome to the 318th episode of the Internet of Things podcast. This is your host, Stacey Higginbotham, and your co-host,
Kevin Toffel.
And we have a lawsuit-heavy show for y'all today. Man, 2 lawsuits, one from ADT. Another is a 7th Court of Appeals decision that we're going to talk about affecting your privacy. We've got a new device from Wemo. We've got some cool news on energy harvesting sensors, which y'all know I love. FreedomFi is bringing helium mining to the CBRS spectrum, and we'll talk a little bit about what that means and update some helium news. We're also going to be talking about a small acquisition in the, I'm just going to call it people tracking space, safety. It's safety related. Funding for companies in earthquake detection and construction. And Kevin is going to tell us about his thoughts on the Eve Aqua, which is a smart hose connector. Yay! Plus, we are also going to have our guest this week is Matt Johnson, who is the president of Silicon Labs. He's going to talk about Silicon Labs' decision to divest itself from its automotive and infrastructure business and focus solely on IoT. We're going to talk about what that means for them and the impact of this $2.75 billion deal. We're also going to hear from our sponsor, DigiCert, talking about scalable PKI. And now, let's bring the show to life, starting with a message from another one of our sponsors. This sponsor is Qt. No, really, it's called Qt, spelled QT. So, this is a company that will help you expand the functionality of your IoT products and services with companion apps that are well-designed mobile applications on one framework with no headaches. And if you want to learn more about this, they are doing an event called the Dev Des Days 2021. It is a 4-day event starting May 18th. Developers of all walks of life are allowed to attend. It is free, and you can register at www.qt.io/devdesdays. Okay, let's get started with lawsuits.
Yeesh. This is like a theme with this company.
It is. Well, you know, when you don't have, I don't know, you're in a kind of a market that's saturated. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. ADT. They are suing Ring. They are suing it for trademark infringement related to, and this should be, imagine all caps here, ADT's famous blue octagon. This is not related to Paul Bunyan's famous blue ox. No. This is a stop sign shaped blue octagon that you might see in people's yards that say something along the lines of protected by ADT. Ring does actually use an octagon sign. It is a different shade of blue. I'm going to call it more of a, cerulean versus a darker royal or navy. For all the guys listening in who don't know their colors, it's just a different shade of blue. And Ring does have an octagon shape, which ADT launched way back in 2016. And ADT complained again to Ring and said, hey, that's an octagon and it's blue like ours. And Ring turned and made the octagon less blue. They put more white space on it.
Yeah, it's a lighter blue. I can see ADT's issue. I have seen the signs, the Ring signs, where only the top third is blue. Even though it has a blue octagon outline, the top third says protected by, and then in white in the middle, you have the Ring text, and then at the bottom, it's like a gray audio-visual monitoring. So maybe they've tried to differentiate a little bit to avoid this, but apparently they didn't avoid this.
So I can tell you that the Ring mailbox sensor is also an octagon, and it has the same blue, white, gray coloring that sits on the outside of my mailbox. By the way, update on that. The battery life on that did not last super long. It was about 2 months of good battery life. Then it died. And when you change the battery on this sucker, it is a pain in the tuchus. Good
That's
Lord.
Not good.
Yeah, it's awkward because it's stuck to the mailbox with, tape.
Right. And just to be clear, that's not using the Amazon Sidewalk Labs yet. And I'm wondering when it does, will that change battery life? But that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah. Sorry. I'm just like, hey, by the way, everyone who wanted to update on that, there's your update. Okay. So going back to this lawsuit, ADT and Ring have had a history of lawsuits, not just trademark related, but ADT actually sued Ring all the way back after Ring acquired Zonoff, because when Ring launched a security system, they used code from Zonoff, and Zonoff, which they were the company that did IoT platform software software
code.
ADT actually hired Zonoff to build their smart home security system. Zonoff did the Staples hub way back in the day. So what happened is Zonoff was sued, and then when Ring bought Zonoff, Ring ended up getting sued because Ring used the code in their smart home security product. Back at this time, this was when Ring just had the doorbell.
Mm-hmm.
So then Amazon swooped in like 2018, and they were like, hey, we're going to buy this. And then ADT and Amazon kind of negotiated some stuff.
Right. But even so, I mean, Amazon's, I think, probably got deeper pockets than ADT. So now it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with the lawsuit, as opposed to when it was just Ring on its own.
And remember, in August of last year, Google agreed to acquire 6.6 ownership stake in ADT for $450 million.
Yeah.
So that is, yeah.
Yeah, the big boys are going into the UFC octagon ring now.
No, it's another famous, not a blue octagon.
But the mat's blue.
There you go. So just so y'all know, ADT is seeking an injunction saying, hey, stop using the famous blue octagon, and treble damages, which is very common in IP lawsuits. We'll see what happens. Much more interesting for people who care about security and privacy is a appeals court decision. This is the 7th Court of Appeals. This is out of Chicago. This is a lawsuit that was, well, it's tied to two things, but we only care about the main thing, which was privacy. It's cell phone privacy records. And do police have the ability to do a couple things? Get historical records from your carrier, so like in this case it's AT&T, and do they have the ability to get a real-time location based on data from your carrier? And
I say yes if they have a warrant.
Yes.
What does the court say?
The court says no, you don't need a warrant for this.
What?
And here we go. This is going to get into some of the legal weeds here, but this is an important case, and I'm going to try to do my best to not go too deep in the weeds. And we're going to link to the court decision. You can read it. So back in 2018, the Supreme Court ruled in a case called Carpenter versus the U.S. that the government could not get detailed, long-lived historical data from a person because it showed too much of their private lives. And we all rejoiced. It was very exciting. In this case, there were 3 location issues to tackle. One, we're not going to go there. The second issue was whether the government had the right to get this guy's historical data from AT&T without a warrant. And the court decided that, yeah, they can get it. And in this case, so they corroborated data, but they didn't actually introduce any of it at trial, so it was fine that they got all this historical data. The third issue, they actually used his cell phone data in real time to track the person after they decided to arrest him. So the third issue was, hey, is it legal to basically follow someone in real time to find their location in order to arrest them? And the court here again decided that yes, this particular use case was okay because it was short-lived and because during that time, the defendant only traveled on public roads, and they ended up finding his car basically in a parking lot at a hotel. So he was in public all of those times. So it was fine that they tracked that data and then arrested him. So that's what the courts have decided. So now it looks like police, if they want to get real-time location data from you and you are traversing public roads and parking in public parking spots, it's going to be fine?
So stay off the main roads, which is common sense anyway, but wow.
No. All roads are pretty much public if you want to get to a place.
Yeah, I know. I mean, so basically trespass on other people's private property when you're trying to get away, and then you can get away. I mean, it's almost like splitting hairs just to make it viable as a way to track people.
Welcome to the law. All about splitting
No,
hairs.
no, I'm not into that. No law for me.
So the next recourse, so if we hate this, the hope would be that this is a court of appeals. So the next step is going to the Supreme Court. And we'll see if the Supreme Court says, this is troubling. We're going to take this case. And we don't actually know if the defendant in this case will decide to keep going.
Technically, they're not really tracking you anyway. They're tracking your phone. So another piece of advice, get a burner.
Well, yeah, this guy, so the thief in question gave his phone number to the gun dealer when he bought the gun that was used in one of the robberies.
Sure.
And that's how the police got the information.
Yep. That's why I always carry 3 burners with me.
Right. Along with your many weapons. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So let's get back to the smart home, just for fun. Privacy not included. Wemo last week introduced a new device. It is the Wemo Stage Scene Controller. This is a 3-button light switch and a couple interesting things about it. Kevin, you want to say it?
Yeah. I mean, right off the bat, it's a $50 scene controller. So it's like a multi-button remote. As you said, it's 3 buttons, although you can press the button for one function or press and hold the same button for a different function. So you could have up to 6 scenes with this. What's interesting about this, at least to me, although I don't really need one of these, I still may try one, it is a HomeKit enabled device, and it's also, get ready, thread ready. So it doesn't currently, going to support thread networking. Currently, it's got Bluetooth built in, Bluetooth LE, and that's how it will function today. But I presume with a firmware upgrade and the proper thread network pieces in your home, this will be thread ready for hopefully faster responses.
It looks like a light switch. It is not wired like a light switch. It's just you can stick it on the wall. You can hold it as a remote controller. I'm going to say something, though. I had a Wemo Wi-Fi light switch that had the same scene control, the long press and single press. It never worked for me. It literally never worked.
So can I throw out a potential reason why?
Because it was Wi-Fi or because it was Wemo?
Was it Wi-Fi?
It was Wi-Fi.
Really? I was going to say if it was Bluetooth, then I could see it because maybe you're not going to have Bluetooth coverage all throughout your home, but Wi-Fi you would. Well, that's not good. Well, now I have to get one and try it because I got to try the thread one.
Yeah, so I'd be curious to see if they figure this out because I didn't like it.
It's a button. How did they mess that up?
Oh, I think it was 2 buttons. But yeah, Wemo is iffy on the software side too. I have the outlets. I had been a huge Wemo fan for a long time, and I'm not feeling it anymore.
That's fair. Yeah, you can put this in the Wemo faceplate, as you said, or a Decora faceplate.
Oh,
interesting. Yeah, well, I suspect you'll get much better battery life. I don't know what kind of battery life you got with the old one when it was working. This has a coin cell.
It was a light switch, so it was plugged.
So it was
installed.
wired. Okay,
yeah,
okay.
Wired.
Well, no, you're not going to get better battery life with this because yours didn't use a battery, but this does. It's just a coin cell battery, which is another great feature of these low-powered radios, such as Bluetooth LE and Thread.
Yes. All right. In other news, really random, but very cool. Everactive. This is a company that they make a self-powered sensor that harvests its own energy, and you can actually choose what type. It could be solar. It could be piezo. I can never say it. Basically based on movement, temperature change as an energy harvester. They'll build it. They have won a SBIR contract for the U.S. Air Force. And the U.S. Air Force has been using their sensors for steam trap monitoring and a couple of other things. And basically, this contract extends those use cases. Now, instead of just steam traps and rotating machines, they're going to look for other machines that they could use this on. Everactive has tons of customers. They recently raised $35 million in funding. They used to be known as Psychic. I don't know if I wrote about them way back in 2018 when they were still Psychic, but now they're doing a good job. They're actually putting their sensors into lots of industrial use cases. So, and this is just neat because it's a public contract they can actually talk about, and we talk about this all the time. But
anything we can do to get remote sensors to go without batteries, it's a double win. I mean, it's good for deployment. It's good for the environment. At that point, you're not wasting and replacing batteries, right? One of the interesting bits, and I don't know if you were going to mention this, I'm shocked by what they say is the data transmission range of these sensors. 250 meters to their IoT gateways.
That's pretty good. I mean,
250 meters, that's like more than an eighth of a mile.
Yes, I was like, why aren't we on metric? But yes.
I'm guessing it's like 900 megahertz or something, but I'm just amazed that a batteryless sensor can send data. Not that it's sending tons of data. It's probably very minute bits of data, like the steam trap is overheating or whatever, But 250 meters is phenomenal.
It is. And their earliest version of the sensors only consumed like 20 microwatts.
Sheesh.
Which is itsy.
Itsy bitsy.
All right. Are you ready to talk about either crypto or low power wide area networks? Which is going to sell it more?
Crypto will sell it more, but the fact of the matter is it's actually both.
Yes.
Yes, I want to hear about this because you wrote recently, I think 2 weeks ago, about how literally you have mined enough helium tokens to cash those out at over $10,000. And that's your LoRaWAN gateway. Helium doesn't sell anymore. I have a third-party one on order. But now there's a new company that's going to mine helium tokens and also provide you with your own private 4G, 5G network?
Yeah, so let's back up just a smidge and explain to people what the heck Helium is. Because Helium is a company that's been around a long time, bunch of iterations. A couple years ago, they hit on the idea of creating it's a token-based network is what it is. So what happens is they allowed people to set up LoRaWAN gateways that you set up as part of the Helium network. And when you set this up, by providing coverage, you get tokens. They're called HNTs, Helium Network tokens. And so you get these tokens by like proving out coverage. So instead of like a cryptocurrency where you're doing a proof of work, this is really a proof of coverage. So every time your hotspot gets online and says, I'm here, other people's hotspots witness it, and the act of saying I'm here and then the act of witnessing it all generate fractions of tokens.
And the network coverage itself is for IoT sensors over LoRaWAN, but you actually provide the backbone or the internet connection through your own home internet to get that sensor data out to the cloud.
Yes. And the idea here is it's way too expensive to set up a low power wide area network with something like NB-IoT or even some of the more traditional networks because the capital costs of covering such a wide area is prohibitive when you want to be able to charge someone like 2 cents, right?
It's basically crowdsourcing a network for IoT devices.
Yes, good call. Okay, so that's what Helium is. And they've done really well. So I wrote about this, like you said, 2 weeks ago. Basically, all of a sudden, I've been running my network for a year because I'm like, yeah, let's be part of a network coverage. Altruism, go. And it turns out that I had generated like 1,000 something odd Helium network tokens. And all of a sudden, sometime in March, they became worth something. I don't know why. I still don't know why. But they were worth something. So I was like, Kevin, this is like $10,000 in tokens. That's crazy. Mm-hmm. And Kevin said, get ye to Binance. And so I did. And so that's how that worked. And I should also say that Kevin, way back when we talked about this like a year ago, or even, I guess it was a year ago, you were like, this is exciting. And we joked about our retirement networks, but.
And Kevin didn't buy one at the time, and now he had to wait and get a third-party one that's on order. But let's not go there. One quick point, though. You said you didn't know why the price went up, and I don't either. But to my understanding, the companies that want to track their data on this network actually buy tokens and use them to get the data.
Sort of. They buy data credits to get the data.
Okay. So there could be a growing demand for the tokens.
There is actually growing demand. They have real customers. Helium does have real customers. Right. So sure. Okay.
You don't care. Enough. You just got your money and you're out.
Well, no, I'm just like, the current prices for this are not driven by rational things.
I know.
So I'm like, sure. Okay. So the news here is that Freedom Fi, which is a company that is basically letting you build your own 5G or LTE network using their own open source telco software. They will let you build your own 5G LTE network, and you will also be mining Helium tokens. So this is useful if you are a company that is very excited about Helium and or building your own 5G network on CBRS spectrum.
Yeah, so the interesting thing is you can buy this, well, there's a wait list right now, and it's going to be at least, they say, $500 for the device. They say you can get it without the mining capability and without the LoRa module, and you can do that now for $299. So literally at least $200 of cost is added for the LoRaWAN, for whatever, I don't know if there's a ASIC for mining on there or what.
Yeah, basically being able to mine Helium tokens costs you $200 and a waitlist.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you make $10,000, that's pretty good, but that's a whole nother. You're actually not mining coins with your network. You're just providing coverage.
Oh, that is true. Well, I'm mining tokens as part of providing coverage. This, I assume, would provide coverage. It would just provide...
It does provide coverage, yes. If you buy the model with the LoRaWAN, LoRa module and such, yes.
Okay, so that exists. All right, little small deals. Let's talk about Life360 is going to buy wearables firm Giobit?
I think it's Giobit, Jiobit.
Yeah, so Life360, if you're not familiar with it, it is a company that allows you to track. It's like Find My Family on all the eyes, but it is not on the eyes. It's for everyone. It's an app. And families have loved this for years. It's a very popular app. Mm-hmm. So basically what this means is instead of just being a software service on your phone, now you can tie it to a wearable that you put on your kid.
Yeah, the Giobit, I mean, they've been around for a while, and they're little tracking devices that you can clip on a pet, put on a backpack for a kid. You can have your child have one in their pocket. It's got Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, cellular, and GPS. So it's got pretty much everything you'd want in a tracker. And then Life360 is saying, hey, we support these now. Well, because I assume that's going to be what they do since they're buying the company.
They're actually saying that if you're a Life360 Platinum member, you will get access to a complimentary Giobit device. Ooh.
Well, that's interesting. And I know Life360 is subscription-based, and I'm just looking on Giobit right now for the child tracker, which really sounds bad, but that's what they call it. A 2-year contract is $9 per month. So that's a little pricey.
Not if your child is not for your child, no. Kevin.
That's true. That's true. And it's included with Life360 is what the deal is now.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, they're just consolidating in. Basically, this is a vertical integration. Yeah. The deal is going to be worth $37 million upfront with $17.5 million in milestone payments if they meet performance targets. This to me is a direct response to Apple finally launching I was going to say iTags. They're Apple tags.
No, they're AirTags.
They're AirTags. Gosh.
And mine are on the way, so we'll talk about those next week.
Yeah, we talked about these already. The Apple AirTags have their ultra wideband chip in it, an NFC radio, and Bluetooth. And basically, it's a tracking network that has super fine grained tracking. That is all you need to know for now. We're going to play with them and talk about them. But in contrast, Life360 is not going to have the fine grained. It's still going to be reliant on cellular data, so GPS or GNSS. So it will not be as...
Well, I mean, that's fine if you're tracking your child and you get to the tree that they're up in the air. You're going to see them up there. You don't need an arrow with precise...
But what if they're in a basement?
You know, they're either up or they're down. You're in the right coordinate.
Yeah, you're in the general vicinity. I will say...
You got the X and the Y. You just need the Z.
Not that you buy iPhones as burner phones, but if you are a criminal, you're going to want to keep all of your iPhones away from people with AirTags. Just so you know. Oh, that should be interesting. Okay, let's talk about funding.
And earthquakes.
Earthquake monitoring platform SafeHub just got $9 million on top of an earlier round. This is a IoT platform that is designed to monitor the structural integrity of buildings. They use data about how buildings collapse and how they fail, along with data from like earthquakes and their personal sensors inside the buildings to say, oh, this building is no longer safe after this. It's really a very interesting technology. We're actually going to cover it in this week's newsletter. So Friday's newsletter will have more on Safe Hub and their $9 million round. We also have funding for a company called OpenSpace. They got a $55 million Series C. OpenSpace is interesting because they are using IoT and computer vision for construction. And what is really happening here is you look at a construction site using computer vision and you can track tools, you can track people, and you can basically make sure all of the tasks get completed on time. And if there's delays, which there always are, you can say, hey, it looks like your drywall people aren't going to be done, or your electricians aren't going to be done in time. Let's hold off on the drywall and reschedule those guys.
Yeah, that's the nice part. You'll know in advance as opposed to the electricians in this case. No, sorry, electricians, but yeah, we'll be ready. We'll be ready by the time comes. And then the time comes and they're like, yeah, we need another week. You're not missing all that lost time. You're going to find out sooner and you can take the appropriate action at that point.
Exactly. So very exciting fundings. Yay. And now.
Oh, very exciting water sprinkler system.
Yes. We will talk about the Eve Aqua with Thread. So Kevin, you try this sucker out. Tell us about it.
I did. So it is a $99.95 smart water flow system. Technically, you could say it's a smart sprinkler system, a watering product. You connect it to a hose bib. Probably outside would be best. It has a Bluetooth radio and it has a Thread radio inside. It also runs on 2 AA batteries that are expected to last a year, but if you make heavy duty use of turning the sprinklers on and off, there's an actual motor inside that opens the flow of the water. I would imagine you're going to lose some battery life for heavy usage. So it is HomeKit compatible and it is, as I said, Thread enabled. I personally don't need one of these, but I still was excited to try it for the Thread purposes and so on. I live in a townhouse and we don't have to take care of the outdoors that much. I mean, we don't have a garden, etc. But it was interesting. The setup process is your typical Apple HomeKit setup. You just scan your QR code and it takes care of the rest for you. You just need to say what room of the house it's in or out. In this case, I called mine outside. And then I did need 2 firmware upgrades to get the Thread radio working. So depending on if you purchase one sooner rather than later, you may have to do the same thing. But it immediately connected to my Thread network, which is basically the bridge between the Thread peer-to-peer device network and the cloud on my Wi-Fi. And that is my HomePod Mini is my Thread border router, as we say, that bridges Thread and Wi-Fi. Range seems to be good. I have most of my Thread devices on the back of my house, and all the way in the front is where I had a hose bib, and it connected to Thread, no problem. And then, like any other smart sprinkler system, using the Eve app, I scheduled various times for the water to go on, the water to go off. You can have multiple schedules. You can see the rate of, how much water you've used in practically real time, because that data is sent over the Thread network and goes right to your app. You can see when the last time you watered something. You can physically press the button in the Eve app to turn the water on, turn the water off. There is a physical button on the device to do that if you're walking past it and you want to turn water on. And it works. It works really well. One thing I did try that didn't quite work, and I wanted to so bad. There is an Eve shortcut created for the iOS Shortcuts app, available on every iOS device. And what this will do, once you install it, you can literally ask Siri to check watering. And what your phone will do then is Siri will check the local weather for your home. And if there is a high percentage chance of rain, the shortcut will literally pause your watering until the next day. It's a little more fine grained than that. Depends on when you check the weather, but that's the gist of it. Well, this worked when I asked Siri to check the weather. It then said there's going to be a 60% chance of rain, and then it errored out. So it did not pause my watering. So I had to manually do that. It's probably just a minor issue that will be fixed. This product is so brand new, you can't even purchase it on the Eve site right now. So I suspect that will be fixed. overall, I mean, if you need something like this and you have HomeKit and or will have Thread in your future, other than that little shortcut issue and the fact that I think the motor is awful loud, I think it's a great device.
Nice. And I should also say this week, Eve said that their 4th generation of the Eve Energy smart plug with Thread, so it finally has Thread, is now available. So
yeah, I tested that one. Actually, we got an early unit and it works really well.
yeah, it's $39.95 and will
It's
soon be
pricey
on.
for a smart plug, I think.
Oh yeah, totally. But it also doesn't it act as like a Thread router border something?
Correct. It will pass along Thread data to the router to help create that mesh network. Yes.
There we go. So it's got some smarts. All righty. And if you're sad because you're like, oh, but it's summer and I'm not a HomeKit person and I need a smart hose timer because I don't have a fancy sprinkler system, I'm just going to throw this out there. Orbit has a thing called the Beehive, and they have a smart hose watering timer that Kevin also tried.
I was going to say, I did, and it is a good product as well. And it's not, I don't believe it's limited to HomeKit, but
it's not.
Okay, perfect. So it's available, regardless of what platform your smart home is built on. But I will say this, only to point out one of the benefits of Thread. The Beehive has like a Bluetooth bridge that you have to plug in somewhere. Whereas with Thread devices, you don't have to plug in a bridge because they talk to each other, and through those peer-to-peer mesh chatter, it all goes to your border router.
I will say though, the Beehive Smart Hose Watering Timer plus Wi-Fi Hub is only $59.99.
That's a good deal because, Wi-Fi is going to give you better connectivity for sure and range.
So, yay. All right. Let us now go to the Internet of Things podcast hotline, which is sponsored by Very. Very is a fully distributed IoT engineering firm that will help you get your biggest projects fully operational on time and on budget. You can discover what Very's multidisciplinary teams can do for you at www.verypossible.com. Okay. And if you have a question for us, you should give us a call on the hotline at 512-623-7424. And when you call us, you will be entered to win a smart speaker of your choice. And we are going to be closing out April's drawing on April 30th. So April 30th by midnight ET. You can only win if you're in Canada or the US, though. I should tell you that.
Sorry about that.
Sorry, y'all. But yeah, so call, you will be entered to win, and we might answer your question. However, this week, we did not go to the voicemail. We actually are going to email because this is such a really good question. So
it is a good question, and it's something that I know that you have faced in terms of challenges in the past. So I will read it, and you can share your experience because I didn't really know the answer to this question. I do now because I know you told me what the answer is, but let me read it. This is from Ted, and Ted is in the process of moving all of his IoT devices to their own network. Okay. He has a Google Nest Hub, 3 minis, several globe lights, and a few Rokus. For the hub and the minis, he's asking, should he use his own Google account to set everything up, or should he set up a Google account for his home and then add the rest of the family accounts to it? He would add his wife and his accounts to have access to everything. He uses Family Link and can use that, he thinks, to have his 2 girls added to it with their own Gmail addresses. Maybe there would be other advantages to having a separate home account. So he's wondering, can or should he do this? And again, you went through this.
There's a couple schools of thought here. With Google specifically, there are a couple wrinkles. 1, if you use your account, when you ask Google for information like your calendar, it's going to give your calendar. If you enable voice match, it will give your calendar versus your wife's calendar versus your girl's calendar. So that's something to think about.
And each person will have to train their voice to the system.
And each person will have to have the Google Home app on their particular device. So that's 1. 2, when you do something like this, if you have a Google Workspace account, it will not work with those, which drives me nuts because I do have a Google Workspace account. Those are 2 things that are important. Now, if you set up your Google device on your account and like your girls don't enable their information, which is totally an option, what's going to happen is they're going to ask the Google device to set reminders or to do things. And the Google device is going to be like, you need to download the app and do voice match. So
right, you can't have a personalized list or a calendar without setting a voice match. That's the tricky part.
Right. Or if you don't set voice match and you just use your account, then everybody's going to get like access. When it says call mom, it's going to call your mom. So,
and you're going to get the shopping list.
And you will get the shopping list. So the alternative, and generally is a good idea, is to create a house email account. And we've done this on Gmail, and we've done it for a couple reasons. So my Google stuff is actually tied to me personally. If you've tied it to yourself personally, you're going to have to you're going to have to go in, click don't enable voice match, and you're going to have to hardware reset your device. So if you've already set it up this way and you want to now set it up the way I'm about to tell you, that's how you do it. Okay. So if you create a house email address, I like this idea because you can tie something like a Spotify account or other like shared accounts. Like if you've got YouTube that you want to watch on your displays, you can actually use that particular shared account or home account to like log in and pay for those things. And then everyone can have access it through the home. And this is nice because like if I'm listening to my Spotify playlist on my phone and I'm not at home and someone tries to listen to something on a Google display in my home, it cuts off my thing on my phone.
You get the boot.
Right. Now, it is complicated to manage this. I mean, you've got to create a separate Gmail account. You can't enable the personalization for things. So you're not going to be able to get the full benefit of like personalized calendar information. That's the reason not to. So I feel like I've given you the reasons to do it and the reasons not to do it. Hopefully this helps. I mean, I can't tell you what to do. It's going to be you.
It's personal choice.
Yeah.
It's tricky. I have everything set up, whether it's HomeKit or in the past, for the past 2 years, Google Home. It's all been under my account. And nobody cares about voice match, and nobody checks for their calendars or ads lists or anything. They just want to turn the lights on and off for the most part. So that works for me. If your family wants to do some of the personalized things, which are very useful.
Yeah, like setting a reminder is a big deal. And like Google, because I've enabled voice match, won't let my husband, who's on an iPhone and doesn't have the Google Home app on his phone and has never done voice match, it won't let him talk to the display and set a reminder. He just can't do it. Because
there's no account to associate it with.
Exactly. So then he's always like, hey, gee, set a reminder. And then Google's like, scan this QR code. So we can set you up.
So in Ted's case or anybody's, I would say it's probably worth a family discussion to go over what they really want to use the system for and what they don't.
Yes. And set up accordingly. Okay.
Exactly.
Well, that concludes this portion of the show. Remember, if you have a question for us or just want to be entered to win, give us a call at 512-623-7424 and stay tuned for our guest, Matt Johnson, the president of Silicon Labs, who's going to talk about what it means for Silicon Labs to go all in on IoT. And now, here's a message from our sponsor. This week's sponsor is DigiCert. Hey everyone, we are taking a break from the Internet of Things podcast for a message from our sponsor. This week's sponsor is DigiCert, which is a leading global provider of PKI and digital certificate management, which helps secure connected devices and users at internet scale. And I have Mike Nelson, who is the VP of IoT Security at DigiCert, here with us today. Hello, Mike. How are you doing?
Hey, Stacy. I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. So first off, why don't you just tell us, why is integrity such a big part of IoT security?
You're right. It certainly is. Integrity is critical when addressing IoT security. It represents trust. And so you need it for things like code integrity, for over-the-air updates or firmware updates, execution integrity, knowing that your devices are operating in a state of integrity, and finally, data integrity, knowing that any data your device is generating can be trusted.
Got it. So what happens when integrity goes wrong?
Yeah, well, there's been a lot of news examples of that recently. The SolarWinds attack is a great example of a lack of integrity. SolarWinds signed an update package that contained malware, and that malware was distributed to over 18,000 of their customers that downloaded it and then had malware on the servers that were leveraging that software.
That is a scary example and very relevant. So how does DigiCert help solve the lack of integrity?
Yeah, and working with many large organizations, I've seen some really bad practices around signing. And most of these aren't the signing itself, it's the processes around the signing. lack of control, signing keys, not having rights management or reporting capabilities. Code signing usually isn't the problem. It's those processes that cause organizations challenges. DigiCert has a secure software manager built on our modern PKI DigiCert One platform that helps organizations establish scalable and controlled processes around signing events throughout their entire organization. Things like signing workflows that need to be automated are an important part of development process. Our signing manager provides secure storage and on-demand access to signing keys. Another important aspect of secure signing is rights management and knowing who has signed and what they've signed. Our platform provides comprehensive rights management, giving you full control over all of the signings. And finally, in addition to these great features, our platform provides full reporting and auditability of the entire system. So you can know from an organizational perspective and have visibility into all the signing events going on.
Sounds great. All right. Well, Mike, where can I go to learn more about DigiCert?
Your listeners can learn more about our secure signing manager at digicert.com.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Internet of Things podcast. This is your host, Stacey Higginbotham, and today's guest is Matt Johnson, the new president of Silicon Labs. Hello, Matt. How are you today?
Hi, Stacey. Thank you. It's great to be here.
Well, gosh, everything seems to be happening over there in my former hometown of Austin. You have a new job. Silicon Labs has a new CTO. Y'all divested a segment of your business. All of this is to focus on the IoT. So let's get started with the big divestiture. Y'all sold your infrastructure and automotive business to Skyworks Solution. Tell me, what was the infrastructure and automotive business?
Sure. So that is big news. Yesterday, we announced that we're divesting the I&A business, or the industrial and automotive. So like it sounds, these are products that service those markets that go across power products, timing products, broadcast products. And we announced that we'd be selling that team and that business to Skyworks for $2.75 billion. And as part of that, obviously, all of that business and products go with that, as well as that team, which is around 350 people. So that team has been an integral part of our company for a long time. So it's big news, and it's exciting because I'll talk in a minute about what it represents for our future and for theirs as well. But it's also like seeing part of your family move out of the house. So it's difficult to see from that perspective.
All right. So let's talk about what this all means, because I'm going to go with years, y'all have been doing a lot of acquisitions related to the Internet of Things, or technologies I associate as being important for that, such as the acquisition of Red Pine that got you some Wi-Fi stuff. Y'all acquired the IP for Sigma, which was Z-Wave. And now you sound like you're going all in here. So tell me about that.
Sure. Yeah, it's pretty bold move when the industry, everyone talks about consolidation. This is a little bit going the other way and increasing our focus. Really what happened was the I&A business and the IoT business, which were the two major businesses within Silicon Labs, just kept on going their own separate ways until we found ourselves with separate customer base, separate supply chain, separate technologies, and really having very little to do with one another or overlap. So that's kind of the backdrop. And at the same time, we have found ourselves with the last decade of focus and investment on IoT and all those acquisitions you mentioned. We found ourselves in a very interesting position where our strength in the market has just continued to grow. And the market itself, that as well as I do, is just poised to continue growing and accelerating. And we really just stepped back and said, wow, this is not an opportunity that you see often in a lifetime, in a career, in an industry. Let's go all in and 100% focus on connecting our capability to that market and going with 100% focus on IoT.
Just to put this in perspective, this is like you said, this is a $2.75 billion deal, but as a company, Silicon Labs has reported less than $1 billion in revenue so far last year. So this represents a fairly significant chunk of your business?
Yes, this represents about 40% of our revenue last year. But the key is because we see that momentum in the IoT, we'll make that up very quickly. And just to kind of make it real, when we announced this yesterday and shared, updated guidance, we forecasted in 2021, this year, growth somewhere between 25 and 30%. And also committed that we see ourselves growing, at least 20% every year moving forward. And you put that together and you can see very quickly we're going to be able to make up for that revenue and be better positioned to focus and maximize the opportunity in the IoT space.
Awesome. All right. So let's talk about what it means to be a silicon provider in the IoT space. Because when I think of y'all, and man, I met the founder of Silicon Labs, Nav Such, when I moved to Austin and started covering hardware. So I know this company, I feel, but it's changed a lot. So most of us think about radios, but y'all also have microcontrollers associated with your radios as part of the module business. So what does it mean to be a chip provider for IoT? What are the focuses that the company has?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. And before I start answering that, it's just worth commenting that I think for everybody involved, this is kind of a dream come true that we've focused on this space, for so long, and to get to a point where we feel that we can dedicate the company and focus to this exclusively is just incredibly exciting. So I think there's a lot of happy people right now in Silicon Labs. But to answer your question, it sure has changed, right? To be a provider or supplier to the IoT space today is, yes, there's a silicon component, and that's for sure in our name as a company, but it's really become so much more than that, right? The way we think of it is it's a platform, which is an overused term, but it's a complete solution and a platform for our customers. And what I mean by that is, if you step back, we literally have tens of thousands of customers in IoT and thousands of applications and over 100 different wireless technologies that we support. So being able to provide a platform for our customers to be able to navigate that, whether it's the silicon, which is critical, but also all the firmware and software that comes with that. You need your operating system, you need your stacks, you need your tools to develop it. You need to be able to, put all of this into solutions that get compliance for FCC or whatever region of the world you might be in. And to do that as a complete solution, it's really required, us to transform. So we've really seen that to be this, you need to be incredibly strong in all those facets, and you need to invest just as much in any one of those as the original, semiconductor or silicon side that we got started in. And there's no sign that that's going to, slow down at all. If you look, what we've said we want to be is the intelligent wireless connectivity supplier for the IoT space. And that intelligence is providing that complete solution that, yes, it includes the processing or compute for what our customers need to do, not only the wireless connectivity, which is critical, but look at how it's changing, right? We're adding security increasingly on end devices, is really ramping up over the last few years and will continue to. The introduction of AI or machine learning and inference at the end node is growing very quickly now. And I think another piece that will continue to add that complexity, but also complete solutionness, if you will, at the end node is the ease of use and the developer flexibility.
That is true, but it's also a brutal reality for a silicon provider because, and I'm not trying to poo-poo the software here, which is essential, but it's also something I feel like a lot of chip companies, they don't get credit for when it comes to margins and being able to sell that. It's just part and parcel of delivering a good experience for your customers, but it's somewhat painful on the balance sheet. So I'm curious how you guys, I see companies trying to buy software and services products that may not actually help them boost their margins. And I don't know what you guys see on that front for y'all.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a fascinating thing to watch over the last decade where I think there's been this urgency and focus on selling semiconductor companies selling software and services. And let me be clear, I think there's opportunity there and I see opportunity, but I think it has to be rooted in a clear value proposition and business model that makes sense for our customers, and not only because we want to do it. That's the first point. I think also we look at this through a different lens, that I don't think of us as selling semiconductors or chips. We sell a solution and an experience for our customers. And yes, that monetizes as a chip that we sell them, but it is absolutely not valuable if it doesn't come with all those other pieces, like the software and support that goes with it. It's like a brick phone. So for us, it's more about saying these are requisite pieces of the total solution, and we're not only getting paid for silicon, or we're not getting paid for software. We're getting paid for that solution that we provide, and that's an integral part of the total solution. And that's how we look at it. So we don't tend to struggle with, well, should we be charging for this or not? We look at it and step back and say, what's the problem? What are we trying to solve? And then what's that total solution worth? Not, how do I make sure I charge a little for software? The goal is that we get this industry to really achieve its full potential, which it hasn't yet. And I think, being able to bill a little bit here and there on software isn't the big picture. The big picture is getting that software, that connectivity and developer experience and capability to a point where that market can do it as easily and as quickly and as effortlessly as it needs to realize its potential. And that's where the money is. That's where the impact is to the industry. So that's how we tend to think of it. And maybe it's just a mid or longer term versus short term.
Well, let's talk about what the IoT needs. So when I'm looking ahead, I see two big things. One, security. We're actually seeing a lot of movement this year, and I'm very excited about that, on the security front. We've got ARM's confidential computing. We've got Project Connected Home over IP has some nice security stuff that's really interesting. Tied into that, we've got the FIDO Alliance promoting their FDO provisioning protocol. We've got a lot of really cool stuff. What are the elements you're most excited about? What do you think is most important for people to know as they're thinking about trying to design products with security in mind?
I think we've reached a point in our industry, which is pretty fundamental, where everybody agrees that security is needed for the IoT to reach its potential. I think that wasn't always the case. And we see that across our customer and partner base now, that the recognition and desire to do that is there. I think end devices and device level has really accelerated a lot in the last year or two. And, we're excited about that because I don't think it can work or succeed without that. Everyone has their focus in that space on improving it. And, this is something where our team took a pretty bold move years ago and invested in putting a higher level of security in all of our products before that was obvious or there was any customer pull. And that served us well, because now I think we're in a position where we can accommodate almost any permutation of our customers' security direction moving forward. And, an easy example is just a few weeks ago, we were the first company to receive a PSA Level 3 cert, which is the highest level certification that they have. So we completely bought into it and are committed to not only investing in it for the last few years, but to continuing to push that boundary, because I don't think it's the only challenge out there. It's one cornerstone or elemental challenge that if we don't get that right and there's not trust and not security, we will stop the IoT's progression in its tracks. And I don't think that's what any of us want. We want the opposite.
Yeah, y'all are totally in on that. I know that like a month ago, y'all announced I could buy a 32-bit microcontroller that has security as part of that for $1, less than $1, I think, a chip, which is crazy. So yes, y'all are really baking that in at all levels. Hopefully people will turn that on. I do.
Absolutely.
I do want to move to the next area, which is AI. You mentioned machine learning at the edge. I think that's super important. There are so many companies right now building capabilities for AI into their silicon. So this may be, different types of memory or more networking on chip for matrix multipliers and all sorts of nutty things.
Ooh.
But when you're talking about building for the IoT, I think that's kind of crucial to think about how to add that in there. And I'm curious, what are y'all doing on that front? Or how do you view AI as part of your whole focus on IoT?
Yeah, absolutely. The fast answer is I would view machine learning for end nodes as ultimately just as integral to the IoT as security. Security is just much further ahead in terms of implementation and need. But I think we'll find the same thing over time with machine learning. And specifically, think of it as inference at the end device. And really it's for, optimal partitioning of processing and for providing features that wouldn't be able to be possible otherwise. So one of the key challenges that's unique to machine learning in the IoT space is so many of these devices and applications that we serve are battery powered and require ultra low power. So if you think about that use case, most of the work in AI prior to this was really focused on having much more reliable, durable, robust power supplies. So being able to do solutions that comprehend that long battery life, and an example would be 10 years on a coin cell, and still provide novel, useful implementations of machine learning for these end node devices is where we're focused. So the way we're doing that is because there's so much, I would say, advancement, innovation, and churn going on out there right now, we're providing silicon that has what I would call the foundation to be able to process, support, accelerate for a customer, whichever direction they end up going in terms of their specific machine learning implementation, their tools, and their preferred tools and code. That way, they don't feel like, well, if I pick this silicon, I can only go this way. We're really trying to provide that flexibility because the market's so young and guaranteed it will evolve, change, and it's far from converging on a path. It's probably diverging right now.
Awesome. All right. Well, Matt, congratulations on, I guess, your increased focus, your new job, and thanks for coming on the show this week.
Stacy, thank you for having me, and appreciate the opportunity getting to talk about this. And I think there's so much more that we can continue on our next time. Thank you much.
That's it for this week. Thanks so much for listening. And remember, if you'd like more IoT news, sign up for my newsletter at stacyoniot.com. We'll see you next week.